Look honestly at how your days have been lived. A new plan excites you. A fresh direction promises relief. For a short time, energy returns. Then resistance appears. Doubt whispers, boredom sets in, and something new pulls your attention away. You move again, but nothing compounds. This is how effort dies without you noticing. Motion replaces progress. Activity replaces achievement. You stay busy enough to feel productive, yet nothing solid forms. Time continues forward, and the results you expected never seem to arrive, no matter how sincere your effort feels. Most people believe failure comes from lack of effort, lack of intelligence, or lack of opportunity. They are wrong. Failure comes from effort divided. Energy scattered across too many aims loses its force, just as water poured thinly across ground never gathers enough pressure to move anything. Trying everything feels responsible and intelligent. It protects your pride. If nothing works, you can say you tried. But the world does not reward attempts. It rewards pressure applied in one direction until resistance gives way. Without concentration, effort becomes noise. You already recognize this pattern in your own life. The unfinished projects, the half-learned skills, the goals abandoned just as momentum started to form. You did not quit because you were incapable. You quit because you never stayed long enough to become dangerous. Dangerous people are not scattered. They are narrow, exact, and disciplined. While others divide themselves among many pursuits, they drive one purpose so deeply into their days that results become unavoidable. To the outside world, it looks like luck. In truth, it is focus. Look at who dominates any field you admire. The name that carries weight. The person whose work speaks before they do. None of them tried everything. They chose one direction and stayed when boredom, fear, and doubt demanded retreat. This is where fear speaks loudest inside you. What if you choose wrong? What if something better appears later? What if you waste years? These questions sound practical, but they are the language of drift. Clarity does not arrive before commitment. It is born from it. Every year spent sampling without deciding extracts a cost. You grow older, not sharper, busier, not freer. You watch others pass you, not because they are superior, but because they stayed with one thing while you kept restarting your path from the beginning. Power does not come from variety. Power comes from concentration. When force is applied to a single point repeatedly, resistance weakens. Focus turns ordinary effort into something that commands results, while scattered energy leaves even great effort unnoticed. Trying everything often hides avoidance. As long as you keep switching, you never face the full weight of resistance. You never reach the point where persistence, not excitement, determines who you become. Drift feels safer than discipline, but safety produces nothing. You have felt this moment before. The urge to quit just as the work becomes demanding. The temptation to change direction when the first real obstacles appear. That moment is not failure. It is the doorway to strength, and most people turn away from it. Mastery is not talent. It is obedience practiced daily. When you commit to one aim and return to it again and again, your subconscious begins to accept it as identity. And identity governs behavior, decisions, confidence, and ultimately results. And this is the point where most people turn away. They want inspiration without instruction, comfort without command. But growth is not created by enthusiasm. It is created by repetition, especially when motivation fades and discipline must carry the weight alone. When focus hardens, something changes. Confidence stops depending on mood. Energy stops leaking into distraction. You move with certainty, not because life becomes easy, but because direction is fixed and doubt no longer negotiates with you each morning. Indecision weakens the inner voice. Decision strengthens it. When you stop renegotiating your future every day, momentum replaces anxiety. Action becomes natural instead of forced, and effort finally begins to compound instead of reset itself endlessly. Most people never experience this shift. They remain harmless, Always learning, never applying, always preparing, never committing? Harmlessness feels safe, but it produces no authority, no momentum, and no results that command respect from the world. You were not built to drift. You were built to choose, to persist, to remain when novelty disappears. That is where strength is formed, where self-respect returns, and where outcomes finally begin to obey sustained intention. Do not confuse this with stubbornness. This is intelligent commitment. Adjust methods when necessary, but never abandon the aim. Direction stays fixed while tactics evolve. The man who knows where he is going can afford patience without losing power. Here is where obedience matters. You must hear this not as encouragement, but as command. Choose one thing worthy of years, not weeks. Return to it daily, especially when doubt appears and distraction promises relief disguised as opportunity. Repetition is what separates the dangerous from the harmless. The same action, the same focus, the same discipline applied long enough for identity to lock in. When that happens, results no longer feel forced. They feel inevitable. Listen like your future is watching, because it is. What you repeat becomes who you are. What you obey becomes your power. Drift weakens, decision concentrates, and concentrated force always produces results when sustained. The world does not fear the man who dabbles. It does not yield to curiosity alone. It responds only to authority, and authority is earned by the man who becomes dangerous at one thing and refuses to let go until it obeys. I have watched men exhaust themselves without ever touching power. They rise early, speak of ambition, consume knowledge, and keep their days full, yet their lives remain strangely unchanged. They mistake movement for advancement and noise for momentum. The tragedy is not that they fail openly, but that they remain busy enough to believe they are progressing while their strength quietly drains away. Trying everything feels intelligent. It gives the appearance of diligence. It allows a man to tell himself he is searching, learning, preparing. But nature does not reward searching. It rewards pressure. And pressure cannot be applied by a mind that divides itself daily among many directions, many aims, many half-begun efforts that never reach maturity. Motion without direction creates a peculiar exhaustion. The body may still function, but the spirit grows tired. Each new beginning demands fresh enthusiasm, yet no continuation ever delivers reward. The mind learns a dangerous habit. Starting feels pleasant, finishing feels heavy. Over time, enthusiasm weakens, and discipline is never given a chance to form. The subconscious mind does not accept instruction that is temporary. It responds only to repetition that suggests permanence. When a man moves from aim to aim, trade to trade, plan to plan, his inner mind receives no clear order. It cannot form identity because identity requires consistency. Without identity, effort has no anchor, and action lacks authority. Curiosity is not obedience. Curiosity samples. Obedience remains. Curiosity asks, what else? Obedience asks, what next within this? One scatters power, the other concentrates it. Men praise curiosity because it feels open-minded, but the world is built by obedience to purpose, not by fascination with possibility. Most men remain harmless not because they lack ability, but because they refuse narrow commitment. They fear limitation more than failure. They believe choosing one direction closes all others, not realizing that refusing to choose closes them all. Power is never born from variety. It is born from devotion. Effort divided loses force. This is law, not opinion. Water poured thinly across a field disappears into the ground. Water gathered into a channel-cut stone. The same law governs effort. When energy is spread across too many aims, it evaporates. When concentrated, it reshapes circumstance. There is silent damage in constantly restarting. Each abandoned effort leaves a mark on confidence. Each unfinished task weakens self-trust. The man does not notice the loss immediately, but over time he begins to doubt his own endurance. He learns without words that he does not stay. This belief settles quietly and governs future behavior. The world does not reward attempts. It never has. It rewards sustained pressure applied long enough to break resistance. Nature yields only when insistence replaces enthusiasm. A man may try many times and receive nothing. Another may insist upon one direction and receive everything. The difference is not effort, but duration. Drifting often disguises itself as preparation. Men hide behind learning, planning, gathering tools, and seeking better conditions. Preparation becomes a shelter from commitment. As long as one is preparing, one is not accountable. As long as one is learning, one need not endure resistance. Unfinished work carries a cost rarely discussed. It robs a man of self-respect. Each abandoned project whispers, "You do not finish." Over time, the voice grows louder. Confidence weakens not because of failure, but because of retreat. Success does not demand perfection, but it does demand staying. I once observed a young man who moved from trade to trade with remarkable speed. He spoke intelligently about each field, knew the language, and impressed listeners with his versatility. Yet he never stayed long enough to become valuable. Each departure reset him to beginner status. Years passed, and he remained impressive but powerless. In contrast, I watched a clerk assigned to a narrow, uncelebrated function. Others mocked his limitation. He refused to abandon it. He learned every detail, refined every process, and accepted no substitute for mastery. Over time, authority formed. Eventually, his narrow function became indispensable, and power followed him quietly. History is filled with figures dismissed as ordinary because they focused narrowly instead of impressively. They were not dazzling. They were exact. While others spoke broadly, they worked deeply. While others explored, they obeyed. When results appeared, the world called it luck, unaware of the years of quiet pressure beneath it. Trying everything is not freedom. It is avoidance. It avoids responsibility for results by keeping effort uncommitted. As long as one is exploring, one can say, "I have not yet chosen." But life does not wait for certainty. It responds only to decision expressed through action. Exploration has value only when followed by obedience. Without obedience, exploration becomes a habit of delay. The man becomes addicted to beginnings and allergic to endurance. He learns many entrances, but never passes through a door. Focus is not limitation. It is moral strength. It requires saying no to distraction, novelty, and comfort. It demands that a man remain when excitement fades. This is why focus feels heavy at first. It confronts weakness instead of hiding it. When a man divides his power, he divides his faith. Faith grows only when effort is sustained long enough to produce evidence. Scattered effort produces no evidence, only fatigue. Concentrated effort produces small victories that compound into belief. There is a moment every man encounters when resistance first appears. Boredom whispers. Doubt questions the choice. Discomfort suggests escape. This moment is not a warning. It is an invitation. Those who flee remain harmless. Those who stay begin to harden. I do not divide my power. I choose direction and remain. My effort compounds because I do not retreat. The man who stays begins to change internally before the world notices. His decisions simplify. His energy steadies. He stops negotiating with himself daily. The aim becomes familiar. The work becomes less emotional. Discipline quietly replaces enthusiasm. Those who try everything often believe they are protecting themselves from regret. In truth, they guarantee it. Years pass, and they realize they have lived many beginnings but no conclusions. The weight of unfinished life becomes heavier than the fear of commitment ever was. Power does not come from intelligence alone. It comes from obedience to a single direction long enough for identity to form. Once identity forms, action becomes natural. The man no longer forces himself. He acts because he knows who he is. Most never reach this stage. They remain students of life rather than participants, always preparing, never claiming, always learning, never commanding. The world does not resist them because they offer no pressure. The dangerous man is not reckless. He is concentrated. He does not threaten. He persists. His power is not loud. It is unavoidable. Resistance meets him and weakens because it is met daily by the same force. When a man finally remains, the subconscious accepts instruction. Faith begins to grow without effort. Doubt loses its voice. Identity locks in. What once required discipline now feels inevitable. Trying everything delays this moment indefinitely. Staying invites it. I have never seen power arise from excitement alone. Enthusiasm is a spark, but sparks do not move engines. Only sustained fire does that. Men often confuse the two. They believe that if feeling is strong enough at the beginning, results will follow naturally. But the subconscious mind is unmoved by intensity that appears briefly and disappears just as fast. It responds only to instruction repeated until it accepts the order as final. The inner mind is not persuaded by what a man tries once or twice. It listens only to what is practiced. Every repeated act, every returned effort, every refusal to retreat sends a clear message. This direction is permanent. When that message is received often enough, the subconscious aligns behavior without argument. What once required struggle begins to occur naturally. Concentration simplifies life. When direction is fixed, decisions lose their emotional charge. The man no longer asks what he feels like doing. He asks what serves the aim. Inner conflict fades because there is no longer a debate. One purpose stands and lesser impulses are dismissed without ceremony. There comes an unseen moment when effort stops feeling forced. This moment is quiet. No trumpet announces it. The man simply notices that returning to his work no longer drains him as it once did. Resistance still exists, but it no longer frightens. The work has become familiar, and familiarity breeds confidence. Persistence is not willpower. Willpower is noisy and short-lived. Persistence is identity in motion. A man persists not because he is strong, but because retreat no longer fits who he believes himself to be. Once identity aligns with direction, action follows without drama. Staying with one aim trains courage without emotion. Courage formed this way is calm. It does not announce itself. It appears in the refusal to abandon direction when results delay their arrival. Each day of staying adds weight to the man's presence even before success becomes visible. Changing methods is wisdom. Abandoning direction is weakness. Many confuse the two. They believe commitment requires rigidity. In truth, commitment allows adjustment because the destination remains clear. The man who knows where he is going can afford patience without losing force. Boredom is the final test before power forms. When novelty fades and the work feels ordinary, most men flee. They mistake boredom for misalignment. In truth, boredom is the signal that discipline is about to replace excitement. Those who stay pass into a different class of men. Repetition locks belief into behavior. The act repeated daily becomes familiar. Familiarity becomes acceptance. Acceptance becomes identity. Identity governs action without argument. This is the hidden mechanism behind mastery, and it operates whether a man understands it or not. I once observed a man ignored by his peers because his chosen field seemed narrow and unimpressive. Others moved quickly, sampling opportunities and seeking recognition. He remained. He refined one service, improved one function, and returned to it daily. Years later, while others were still searching, his name carried weight. Another refined a single idea, while the world chased novelty. His patience was mistaken for limitation. His refusal to scatter was mocked as fear. Yet when results appeared, they arrived with such force that the world assumed brilliance where there had only been concentration. Many stories of sudden success are lies told by distance. What appears sudden is usually the product of years of quiet persistence. The world sees the harvest, but never the seasons of repetition that made it possible. When a man applies concentration, others notice changes before he does. His confidence becomes calm, not loud. He no longer sells himself with words. His work speaks first. His presence carries weight because his direction is fixed and his effort no longer leaks. His speech grows precise. He no longer speculates about many futures. He speaks from one direction. Precision replaces possibility. Those who listen feel it, even if they cannot explain it. Authority does not come from dominance, it comes from consistency. The man who returns daily to the same work, the same discipline, the same aim begins to radiate certainty. Certainty commands respect without request. I return to my work when others retreat. I am formed by what I repeat. My focus gives my effort authority. Most men never experience this transformation because they leave too early. They depart just as repetition is about to lock belief into place. They mistake the absence of excitement for failure, not realizing that excitement must die before power can live. Concentration also simplifies fear. When direction is fixed, fear loses many of its arguments. It can no longer ask what if, because the man has already decided. Fear thrives on negotiation. Decision starves it. The man who concentrates discovers that energy returns. Not the frantic energy of novelty, but the steady energy of alignment. Effort no longer scatters across many worries. It flows into one channel and gains force. This is why ordinary men become forces, not because they begin extraordinary, but because they remain. Their power is cumulative. Each day adds weight. Each return deepens belief. Each refusal to retreat strengthens identity. The world yields slowly at first, then suddenly. Resistance weakens in proportion to persistence. What once seemed immovable begins to shift. When it does, results appear inevitable rather than surprising. Those who concentrated long enough are rarely shocked by success. They expected it. Their faith was built gradually by repetition. Confidence became quiet certainty. Many chase confidence without understanding that confidence is not created by thinking, but by staying. The man who stays long enough becomes sure, not because he hopes, but because he has trained himself to endure. Concentration is not intensity. It is obedience practiced daily. It does not require brilliance. It requires refusal to scatter. That refusal separates the harmless from the dangerous. There is a moment in every man's life when curiosity must die if power is to be born. Curiosity asks questions endlessly, but answers none of them with action. It keeps the mind open, but the will weak. As long as a man remains curious about many paths, he avoids the responsibility of walking one. This avoidance feels harmless, yet it quietly erodes the authority of his inner voice. Indecision weakens the inner voice, because it teaches the mind that commands are temporary. Each time a man hesitates, he trains himself to doubt his own direction. The subconscious listens closely to this behavior. It learns that no order is final, no decision binding. Over time, confidence does not disappear dramatically. It fades gently until the man no longer trusts himself to endure. Decision strengthens faith without emotional effort. Faith is not excitement. It is familiarity. When a man decides and returns to that decision daily, belief forms naturally. He does not need to persuade himself. His actions do that for him. Faith becomes quiet, steady, and difficult to disturb. There is a precise moment when a man stops asking permission from doubt. It does not arrive with thunder. It arrives when he grows tired of negotiating with fear. He does not defeat doubt by argument. He defeats it by refusal to listen. From that day forward, doubt may speak, but it no longer decides. Dangerous men are not reckless. Recklessness is scattered energy pretending to be courage. The dangerous man is exact. He knows where his effort goes. He measures his actions. He does not waste force. His strength is concentrated, and concentration makes even moderate effort formidable. Fear loses power when direction is no longer negotiable. Fear thrives on alternatives. It survives by suggesting escape routes. When escape disappears, fear weakens. The man no longer asks how to avoid discomfort. He asks only how to proceed. Many confuse stubbornness with intelligent commitment. Stubbornness resists adjustment. Intelligent commitment protects direction while allowing method to evolve. The man who is committed does not cling to tactics. He clings to purpose. This flexibility within firmness is what makes him resilient instead of brittle. Discipline becomes lighter once identity hardens. At first, discipline feels heavy because it contradicts habit. Later, it feels natural because it expresses identity. The man no longer forces himself to act. He acts because not acting would violate who he believes himself to be. Most men never cross this internal threshold. They hover near it for years. They flirt with commitment, but retreat when discomfort appears. They want the rewards of certainty without paying its price. So they remain curious, capable, and harmless. I have seen a man become indispensable by staying with unglamorous work. Others avoided it. They sought recognition and comfort. He remained where effort was required and reward delayed. Over time, his reliability became his reputation. Authority followed not because he demanded it, but because he earned it through refusal to leave. I have seen leaders gain loyalty not through charm, but through consistency. Men followed them because they never abandoned direction. Even in uncertainty, their steadiness provided shelter. Loyalty is born from trust, and trust grows only where decision is stable. History favors those whose authority came from narrow devotion rather than wide talent. They were not admired for brilliance at first. They were respected for staying. Their devotion carved channels where influence later flowed freely. Once this inner shift occurs, the world responds differently. Resistance softens, not because obstacles disappear, but because the man no longer feeds them with hesitation. His actions become direct. His energy stops leaking. Opportunities begin to align instead of distract. Before, every opportunity pulled him away from his aim. Now, opportunities either serve the aim or are ignored. This clarity conserves power and accelerates progress. Criticism loses influence. The man no longer measures himself by reaction. His direction gives him a standard stronger than opinion. Criticism may still arrive, but it no longer alters course. Those who criticize sense this and eventually grow quiet. Respect appears without request. It does not announce itself loudly. It arrives subtly, through changed tone, altered treatment, and increased trust. Respect follows certainty the way shadow follows form. I do not renegotiate my future. I obey my aim daily. I am dangerous because I remain. The curious man lives many lives in his imagination, but none in reality. The dangerous man lives one life fully. He trades possibility for power. He sacrifices variety for authority. This trade is misunderstood, yet it is the only path that leads to mastery. When a man commits deeply, something remarkable happens. Time stops feeling like an enemy. Days no longer rush past without meaning. Each day adds weight to the same direction. Life begins to feel cumulative instead of repetitive. Inner noise fades. The mind no longer argues endlessly. The question is no longer whether to act, but how to act better. This shift saves enormous energy and restores clarity. The man who remains discovers that fear was never the enemy. Drift was. Fear only delayed action. Drift dissolved identity. Once drift is removed, fear becomes manageable. This inner shift cannot be rushed. It cannot be borrowed. It must be lived. No lecture can replace the discipline of returning daily to one purpose. Only through return does identity solidify. Many desire to be dangerous without being devoted. They want impact without obedience. This desire is denied by law. Power responds only to those who remain. When curiosity dies, clarity is born. When indecision ends, faith strengthens. When commitment hardens, authority emerges. This is not theory, it is observable law. There is a law that governs all achievement, whether men recognize it or not. This law is indifferent to hope, unmoved by wishes, and blind to excuses. It responds only to pressure applied without retreat. When effort is concentrated upon a single point and sustained long enough, resistance must weaken. This is not motivation, it is law. Pressure applied to one point always overcomes resistance because resistance is never infinite. It only appears so to the man who withdraws too soon. Every obstacle has a breaking point. Most men never reach it, not because they lack strength, but because they remove pressure at the first sign of strain. Time becomes an ally only after direction is fixed. Before that, time works against the man, aging him without sharpening him. Once direction is chosen and maintained, time begins to accumulate power on his behalf. Each day of effort adds weight. Each return deepens force. Time, once feared, becomes an instrument. Patience is impossible without commitment. The man who has not decided cannot wait, because waiting feels like loss. The committed man can endure delay because he knows where he is going. Delay no longer threatens identity. It simply tests it. Repetition turns effort into inevitability. What is done once is an attempt. What is done repeatedly becomes habit. Habit becomes character. Character expresses itself without struggle. When effort reaches this stage, results no longer need to be chased. They emerge as natural consequences. There is a moment when results stop being pursued and begin appearing. The man notices it quietly. The work feels the same, but the response changes. Resistance softens. Progress accelerates. What once required effort now yields return. This moment arrives only for those who remain. The world yields only to authority. Authority is not claimed. It is earned through consistency. The man who applies pressure daily without retreat develops a presence that cannot be ignored. He does not demand recognition. His endurance commands it. Self-respect is restored through obedience. Nothing rebuilds a man faster than keeping faith with his own decisions. Each day he returns, he strengthens trust in himself. This trust becomes the foundation of confidence. Confidence built this way does not collapse under pressure. The dangerous man is not feared for aggression. He is feared for certainty. He does not threaten. He proceeds. His direction is fixed. Those who stand in his way sense that he will not turn aside. This certainty dissolves opposition long before force is required. I have observed a man who stayed while others quit. The work was difficult, the reward delayed, the criticism constant. One by one, his companions withdrew. He remained. When the opportunity finally ripened, there was no one left to claim it but him. What appeared as fortune was simply endurance rewarded. I have seen another outlast doubt until results silenced criticism. His early efforts were dismissed as foolish. He was told he lacked judgment. He did not argue. He continued. When results appeared, the same voices called him visionary. Nothing about his work changed except the duration of his pressure. I have witnessed lives change not by intensity, but by refusal to retreat. The man did not work harder than others. He worked longer in one direction. While others restarted, he continued. That continuation altered everything. Focus is destiny selection. When a man chooses one direction and remains, he selects the life that will grow around that choice. Destiny is not discovered. It is formed through repeated action aligned with decision. Repetition is character creation. What a man repeats becomes what he is. This is why careless habits destroy quietly and disciplined habits build silently. Character is not declared. It is revealed through consistency. Persistence is moral law. It rewards those who obey it and punishes those who ignore it. It does not favor intelligence, talent, or background. It favors only those who remain. Most men underestimate how close success often is when they quit. Resistance is greatest near the breaking point. Nature guards her rewards behind difficulty. Those who flee difficulty never touch reward. When a man applies pressure long enough, fear changes shape. It no longer asks whether he will succeed. It asks how far he will go. This reversal marks the final stage of transformation. At this point, effort feels different. The man is no longer proving himself. He is expressing himself. Work becomes confirmation rather than struggle. Identity and action move together. The world responds accordingly. Doors open quietly. Assistance appears without request. Opposition withdraws without explanation. This is not coincidence. It is response to authority formed through endurance. Many desire inevitability without discipline. They want assurance without obedience. This desire is denied by law. Inevitability is earned only by those who repeat the same action long enough to remove doubt from the equation. When effort compounds, life simplifies. The man no longer feels pulled in many directions. He moves forward with calm certainty. Anxiety fades because decision has removed uncertainty. This is why the dangerous man appears calm. His power is settled. He no longer rushes. He no longer hesitates. He proceeds. I choose one direction and remain. My effort compounds daily. I am no longer harmless. What I obey becomes my power. The man who understands this law stops asking whether success will come. He knows it must, provided he does not retreat. This knowledge removes desperation and replaces it with quiet confidence. The habit of remaining becomes his greatest asset. While others seek shortcuts, he continues. While others doubt, he applies pressure. While others speak, he acts. In time, the results speak for him. They announce his authority more loudly than words ever could. The world listens, not because he demands attention, but because endurance has made him undeniable. This is the final truth. Power is not granted to the man who tries everything. It is yielded to the man who becomes dangerous at one thing and refuses to let go until resistance obeys. He does not need luck. He does not need permission. He needs only to remain. And if he does, the law never fails him.